A Christmas Carol. The Charles Dickens Children's Collection. Marley's Ghost. Let's begin at the beginning. Marley was dead. There could be no doubt about that. Yes, old Marley was as dead as a doornail. Ebenezer Scrooge and Jacobo Marley had been partners in business for many years. Scrooge was his only friend, and the only person at his funeral apart from the priest, that is. Yet Scrooge was not very upset by this sad event. He even went to work on the day of Marley's funeral. You see, Scrooge was a very greedy fellow. Business always came first. He was as hard and sharp as a piece of flint, and as cold, too. Even on the hottest days of summer, his glare sent icy shivers down your spine. One Christmas Eve, old Scrooge sat busy in his office. It was cold, foggy weather. Yet Scrooge didn't shut the door of his office. He needed to keep an eye on his clerk, who was sitting in a miserable little room, copying out letters. Scrooge had a small fire. It was so tiny that its heat barely left the fireplace. The clerk, whose name was Bob Cratchit, put on his white woolen scarf and tried to warm himself by the flame of his candle. It did not work. "Merry Christmas, Uncle," cried a cheerful voice. It was Scrooge's nephew, Fred. "Bah," said Scrooge. "Humbug! Don't be cross, Uncle." "If I had my way," said Scrooge, "every idiot who goes about with Merry Christmas on his lips would be boiled with his own pudding and buried with a stake of holly through his heart." "Don't be angry, Uncle," said Fred. "Come and dine with us tomorrow." Scrooge said that he would sooner see him in a place I'd rather not name. Despite all this, Fred remained cheerful. He wished his uncle and the clerk a Merry Christmas as he left the office. The final hour of work went very slowly. Finally, Scrooge nodded to the clerk that it was time to stop. Instantly Bob Cratchit snuffed out his candle and put on his hat. "You'll want all day off tomorrow, I suppose?" said Scrooge. The next day was Christmas Day. "If it's convenient, sir," Bob Cratchit replied. "It's not convenient," Scrooge snapped. "But I suppose you must have the whole day off. Be here earlier the next morning?" Ebenezer Scrooge lived in a gloomy spot in a sad heap of a building. It was shut away in a courtyard off the street. The courtyard was so dark and foggy that even Scrooge, who knew every stone of the path, had to grope with his hands until he arrived at his door. Scrooge rarely gave a single thought to Jacob Marley, his business partner who had been dead for 7 years now. So why did Scrooge, with his key in his hand, see the door knocker transforming into the face of Jacob Marley? The face was not angry or fierce. It looked at Scrooge in the way Marley used to look, eyes wide open. The hair shifted very slightly, as if blown a breeze that was not there. Scrooge's blood ran cold. But he put his key in the keyhole, turned it firmly, walked in, and lit a candle. Out loud he shouted "Bah!" Then, "Humbug!" He walked up the dark stairs. When he reached his room, he double-locked and bolted the door. Then he checked under the table, under the armchair and inside the cupboards. When he was sure he was quite alone, Scrooge put on his dressing gown, slippers and nightcap, and sat down before a small fire. Oh, there was a servant's bell near the fireplace. Scrooge did not keep any servants, so he was very surprised when the bell began to ring all by itself. From deep down below came a clanking noise, as if some person were dragging a heavy chain. It clanked up the stairs, and stopped outside his door. Clank. "It's humbug still," said Scrooge. "I won't believe it." Clank. Clank. The color drained from Scrooge's face. A shape was coming through the door, without even opening it first. As it came in, the dying flame in the fire leapt up as if to cry out, "I know him. It's Marley's ghost." The ghost's eyes were as cold as death. A kind of bandage was wrapped around the top of his head and chin. The chain he dragged was locked about his middle. It was long, and coiled around him like a tail. From it hung cash boxes, keys and padlocks, account books and heavy steel purses. His body was transparent. Scrooge looked down at Marley's waistcoat and could see right through to the door behind him. "What do you want with me?" said Scrooge, his voice shaking slightly. "A great deal." It was Marley's voice, no doubt about it. "Why are you wearing a chain?" asked Scrooge, trembling now. "I wear the chain that I created in my lifetime," said the ghost. "It is made of the things that mattered to me. Not other people, kindness or forgiveness, but cash boxes, purses and account books. It's terrible. You are wearing a similar chain yourself, Ebenezer Scrooge, though you cannot see it." Scrooge fell upon his knees and clasped his hands over his face. "What should I do?" he wailed. "I am here to warn you. You still have a chance and hope of escaping my fate. A chance and hope that I have gained for you, Ebenezer." "You were always a good friend to me," said Scrooge. "You will be haunted," said the ghost, "by 3 spirits. Expect to see the first tomorrow morning, when the bell tolls 1 o'clock. The ghost backed away from Scrooge. With every step he took, the window in the room raised itself a little, so that when he reached it, it was wide open. After the ghost vanished, Scrooge closed the window and examined the door by which the ghost had entered. It was still double-locked, and the bolts were undisturbed. He tried to say humbug, but could not get beyond hum. Whether it was because of the day's work, the ghost's grim words, or simply because it was late, Ebenezer Scrooge felt in need of rest. He went straight to his 4-poster bed, pulled the curtains open and, without undressing, fell asleep at once. The first of the 3 spirits. When Scrooge awoke, he forgot for a moment everything that had happened to him. Then